Welcome to this episode of Learning Fusion. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the camera tracker. So let's roll this intro and let's get into it.
We're learning Fusion together. We'll learn 2D stuff and 3D stuff and particle stuff and compositing stuff, deep pixel stuff and tracking stuff, but not other stuff, but some other cool stuff, because we're learning Fusion together.
So the camera tracker is used to track camera or track movements. And there's a few ways I use this, and I'm probably going to break this down into 3 parts so I can cover like maybe 3 of the main ways I use it. Because one way we use it is just to simply track footage using the camera tracker so we can put stuff in it. So for instance, we could track this footage and we could put, say, text that's sitting on the ground here, all within Fusion. So we can create our 3D text and everything and add it in Fusion after we do a camera track. And I know a lot of people say, hey, we can just track it and stick it in there. But if we use the camera track, it's going to give you a lot more data, and it's going to give you that point cloud information. So we can actually put stuff in a 3D world. That way, all the parallax that's happening with this drone footage is happening with whatever elements we put in. And then we also use it for tracking the same way and using that data to export into other programs like a 3D program like Houdini or Blender. And we can build stuff using that track data and then bring it back in and input it into our Fusion project. So we'll probably do that in the second episode. And then a third main way I use the camera tracker is to track objects. So say I wanted to just track this car as an object, I could track that as an object using the camera tracker, or I could track somebody's face. And then you could either within Fusion or export it out to a 3D program, build on that and bring it back in. So those are the 3 main ways, and those are the 3 parts we're going to be doing with this camera tracker. So the first part, we're just going to do a simple track and throw maybe some text in this parking lot or on this building or something. So let's go ahead and add a camera tracker. So shift space, camera tracker, and we're going to add it. Now, if you want a detailed node breakdown of the camera tracker, I think I did a 3-part series just on a node breakdown. So I'll put those in the link in the details so you can watch those if you want detailed item by item of what this tracker does. Because today we're just going to be using it, and I'm not going to be going over every single little item in here. Now, anytime we track using the camera tracker, the first thing we want to do is make sure our footage is nice and clean and we're only tracking what we need to track. Meaning there's a lot of elements just in this that we need to get rid of so we can get a proper track. And right off the bat, we see that truck in the background is moving. There's another vehicle way off in the distance here that drives by. Stuff like this is going to throw off your track. Now we can mask those out so it's not being tracked, and we can input that into this little input here. So if we just had one thing, we could just grab this and input it, but we need to bring multiple little items in here so we can mask some more things out. And the way to do that is we can use a multi-merge, and we can just start building all of our little masks on this multi-merge. Now, one thing to know is this multi-merge will not plug in directly into our camera tracker, nor will a matte control. So you would think everything coming out of here is a matte or a mask. But again, this will not plug straight into that camera tracker area. So a good way to do that is after we get all this stuff in, we can bring in a bitmap. So shift space, bitmap. And not into our effects mask, but we can take this bitmap and input it into our camera tracker, and then we can go from our little multi-merge into our bitmap. So anything we create on our bitmap, we can create masks from, meaning our first little rectangle here. If I input this into our first input, we go to our bitmap, you can see it just made a mask, and I can move that around however I want. And as we add, we're going to add more. But just know we actually want to reverse this because this white means this is what the camera is going to track. The black it will not track. So on our bitmap, we're just going to invert that. So let's look at our little tracker here. So first thing we want to do is we want to block off this truck and that car. So we can just move this on over, shrink that up, and bring it down so it's only masking out what we don't want. So let's play our footage and make sure that's masking that out. And let's go ahead and animate that so it's moving with our footage. So I'm just going to add a keyframe, go to the end, and lift this up a little bit. There we go. We've got our mask animating with our footage. Now there's other things that you might not think is going to interrupt your track, but there is actually quite a bit of stuff just in this simple little footage that is going to interrupt our track. So as I'm looking, the one thing we see that is moving or not moving is the reflections in our building, or the reflections in our windows. So as we go up, you see those reflections are staying. So our tracker is going to get thrown off by those things staying in place, because it might say track this little light in the reflection. And as that's moving, it's really not moving with our footage because it's a reflection. So we also want to mask off some of these windows. So we can go ahead and grab another rectangle and put it into our multi-merge. And this one we could just bring over and mask off this window here. It doesn't need to be perfect. We just want to make sure we're masking that off. And let's go ahead and add a keyframe. Go to the end. Let's bring that up so it's masking all that out. So there we go. We've got our next one. And again, if we look at our bitmap, now we've got 2, if I input that into the right one. So there we go. We've got our 2 animated little masks going into our camera tracker. Now there's other things in here, so let's check this out. We've got this reflection back here we need to get rid of. So let's go ahead and add one more. And we're going to input that into the input. Let's go ahead and mask this window in the background out. I'm going to zoom in. And let's go ahead and just do all that just in case. You might think we're getting rid of a lot of good data, but there's plenty of data in this this footage to be able to track correctly. So we've got that, and let's go ahead and animate this one. So keyframe it, go to the end, let's just lift it up. So that's masked out. And I just noticed there's one other one that's probably going to mess with us a little bit. And if we look at this little line, as this tire pops through, you can see like the, it's kind of shifting where that tire image is popping underneath that little rail there. So as I scan, you can see it looks like something's moving back there. See that popping in right there? That's going to mess with your track as well. So let's go ahead and add a mask on that. So one more right here. And I really wish they made it so that would automatically input an input and not into the mask, but it's thinking it's a mask because this is a rectangle and it's normally used for mask. That's why it's automatically going into our little effects mask input. So just watch that. Now this rectangle, let's go ahead and put on our window there. And I want to try to save some of this other juicy information so we know where our vehicle is. So let's go there, keyframe it, go to the end, and let's just go ahead and lift that up. Make sure that's covering all that. So there we go. That looks good. And let's double check. We've got this reflection we want to get rid of. So this window right here. We're going to add another one, bring that into our input. We'll bring this over, shrink it down. Keyframe it, go to the end, change our location there. And there we go. We've got our window masked. And I did just notice another one. If you notice right here, we've got this bird here. So let's go ahead and fit that. We got this bird flying in the sky, and that is definitely going to throw off our camera track because it's zooming across there. And if we zoom in here, you can see our little guy right there. And actually, there's a second one right here. You could barely see that bird in behind that cloud, but it's stuff like this that your camera tracker is going to track. And a lot of times people are like, I don't understand why my camera tracker is not working right or giving me good solves. It's stuff like this that is completely throwing your solves off. So since we don't care about the sky, we can go ahead and create another mask covering up this whole sky so we ain't got to worry about those little birds in there. So let's go ahead and add one more. And put it into our little multi-merge. Let's move this up and let's get most of our sky in there. I do want this information though, so I don't want to cover that and maybe my light. So let's go ahead and keyframe this up. Keyframe. Go to the end, bring it up a little bit. So now all that's going to be masked off. So now if we look at our little bitmap there and I'll fit, you can see we're covering all this information and it's all nice and animated, masked off. So we're not tracking any of that stuff. So on our camera tracker, let's go ahead and look what's going on. I'm going to auto track our stuff here to see what we're getting. And I do want a lot more tracks than that. And first thing I want to do is turn these tails off. So I can just go to the options and turn my little trails off. So I'm not seeing those. And I'm going to reduce my detection threshold down to, I don't know, like 1 maybe, or 1.25. That'll work. And then my minimum feature separation, I'm going to drop down to like 0.005. There we go. And this is going to give me a lot of tracks, but it's going to be a better track because the lower we lower these, the more features it's going to track and the better our track's going to be and the better our little point cloud's going to be. Because if I select our little auto track, you can see we're getting tons of tracks now. So now we can move over to camera. And since I don't know what this drone is, it's, I don't know, maybe 24, 18 millimeters. I don't know what drone lenses are usually. They're around there somewhere. But I don't know. I'm just going to leave this and let this node try to figure out what's going on. And if you know, you can change all of your information here if you know what's going on. But we don't. So we're just going to leave it because it's stock footage. And I'm going to go to my solve tab and I'm going to select solve. And then I'm going to go grab a coffee. And I will be back when this is done solving. And just so you know, this will solve. It'll go to 100%, back down to 0%, up to 100, back down to 0, or maybe up to 70. It's going to keep doing that until it either gives you a failure or it tells you it's finished. So don't be discouraged by this taking forever, especially when we have this many solves. This is going to take a while. So go grab a coffee, go grocery shopping, do what you got to do depending on your system. And I'll be back when this is done. So there we go. Here we are. We've got our little solve error of 0.2539, which is pretty good. And basically anything below 1 is good, but I usually try to shoot for 0.2, 0.1-ish. And depending on what I'm doing, I'll try to get my tracks even better. So meaning how I need to place my stuff. So the more in-depth my placement of objects needs to be, I'll try to get a better solve, but that's a pretty good solve. And again, if you want to look at the no breakdown on changing some of these solve options to get better solves or minimizing some of this stuff, check out the no breakdown. I'm not going to cover it today because this turned into a 2-hour video. But in a nutshell, what we can do is we can see all these little red tracks there popping in, moving. Those are all bad tracks. So it goes by color. Green is good, and then yellow, orange, red. So we can find all of our little red tracks and we can delete these. So we can zoom in and I can select that track. and I can delete it. And if I want to see my actual solve numbers, I could show my all right there. So I can actually see my numbers, and it's easier to see some of these tracks. But sometimes there's so many tracks it's difficult to see. So I'm going to turn these off for now. But I'm just going to look for all these little red, orangish, and dark yellow tracks, and I'm going to delete them. So delete all these. And especially if they're not tracks I really need, I'm going to get rid of them. And that's not a track that's on the footage. But there's a couple up here I can get rid of. I can get rid of this one. And that's all we're doing is we're looking around, looking for bad tracks. And just so you know, this is going to be per frame. So that will delete that track on every frame it's on, but we're going to get new tracks on different frames. So if I go to the end, you can see we've got new tracks. And we've got some more with some pretty bad values here. So we can get rid of these. I'm just going to look around, see if I see any more. We've got a couple up here. All I'm doing is clicking and dragging, highlighting them, and hitting the delete button to delete them out. So all these little orange ones, I don't care to have. I'm going to get rid of. This red one can go away. And I'm just scanning around looking for bad tracks. And here these shadows are probably going to cause issues, so I'll get rid of those. I'm going to go to the middle here, see what else I got, and delete some of these bad tracks. And again, I'm just painting around, looking for bad tracks and deleting them. And, I'm just going to get rid of all these right there. And again, I'm going to bounce around to a few different frames and see if I see any other bad ones. Get rid of those. I'm just clicking and dragging, looking for bad tracks. I feel like Bob Vila as he's talking about adding bushes. And one more. So there we go. That's fairly clean. You can go through and do this more in depth, and I would do it more in depth depending on the product I'm doing, like I said. But once you have, there's some ready ones right there that we want to get rid of. And another one. But once we delete all these bad tracks we don't want, all we have to do is, and there's two more I missed. Let's delete those. All we have to do is go up here to the solve and hit solve again, and it's going to resolve based off those tracks we just deleted. So again, go to the bathroom, grab a coffee, wait, come back, and I'll see you when it's done. There we go. We dropped it down a little bit more. So now it's down to 0.22 instead of 0.25. So it's a little better. And also a good way to look for bad tracks is just to play it, and you can start seeing some of these tracks like slide. You can see like reflection on that window. These tracks are sliding. So I'll probably look for those because we can get this even better. And all these that are sliding on this vehicle here, you can see those are sliding down from the heat reflections. We can delete all those because those sliding tracks are definitely going to throw your track off. So we can look for anything that's doing that. And all that is that bar reflecting on that window, creating something weird for our tracker to track. And there's a few other ones there doing the same thing. And this is kind of the importance of getting nice, high quality footage. A lot of people ask, hey, why do we shoot 12K? You're never going to use 12K. But if you're shooting 12K on footage like this little stuff isn't going to happen, and your tracks are going to be amazing. Same with like shooting 8K. Even though you may not be delivering, you can deliver in 4K, but you can still shoot in 12, 8, 6 to give you something a little more, because this is just 4K footage from a drone, which isn't very good at all. And it causes weird issues like this. So there's some more. Let's get rid of those. And we're going to solve again and be back. And there we go. We're down to 0.21 and better track, less stuff going wrong in it. So there we go. We've got our little track and we're good. So from here, we want to jump over to our export options here. And on our 3D scene here, we want to select this unaligned to unselect anything we have. And the first thing we want to do is we want to pick an origin. So basically our origin point, which is just a single point that in any 3D program gives us our little origin of the scene. And it's just going to give us the origin of all of our little point cloud system here when we export it. So we can just select this one here in the middle and I can hit set from selection. And then on our orientation, we want to kind of select our ground plane. So we can select everything down here that's like on our ground. And I'm not going to select the one in that shadow there. Let me actually go a little below this. So this is all of our ground level and I can hit set from selection. And once I do, I can select aligned and it's going to align it. And down here are little ground plane options. We've got our export options of what we want to export here. But once we have it all set up, all I want to do is hit this export. And it just created all these nodes that we see way off in the distance over here. So let's go ahead and grab all these nodes and bring them to where we can see them. And you can see what it just created. So it basically took our little points and it created this little point cloud system for us. And if we look at our little merge there, not our camera track, you can see it created a 3D camera. So our camera's in there. It created this point cloud, which is all these little points in there. And it created this ground plane to show us where our ground plane is, as well as a render 3D. So now we've basically got a 3D system in there. And if I push play, you can see our ground plane is stuck to our ground. It might be way off in the distance because it's not necessarily going to create it where we selected our points. It's just going to create it in that center area right there. But we can go to all these little options. I can change the size of my ground plane if I want. So I can make it 40. So it's even bigger. So we can see that there. And I can disconnect it if I want so I don't have to see it, or I can reconnect it. Now it's within here that we build anything we want to show up here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my point cloud and I'm going to change it from crosses to points. So now we got little points. I can change the size of my points here so they're not so huge. And if I right click here and I go to my camera, I can select this perspective and now you can see our little point system there is laid out according to our little footage. So if I zoom out here, you can see a little better. So that's the side of our little building there. Right here is this little area. Here's our ground. And we've got our vehicle in there somewhere. And we've got this building back here. This building is right up here. So you can see how this laid it out. And you can see how having more tracking points will really help you in the rebuilding stuff in different 3D programs, because we can export all this out and use this data in different 3D programs. So we could effectively here within Fusion, we just grab a shape and let's stick a shape in there. And let's make this a little sphere. Let's change our radius. If we go back to our camera, we've got a little sphere here sitting on the ground. So now if we push play, our little sphere is stuck to that ground. Let's go ahead and add a color on here so we can see a color. And let's add some light so we can see directional light. There we go. So let's bring that up and let's change our lighting direction So let's transform it so it's shining kind of the same way our little sun is shining. There we go. And let's go ahead and add in ambient light. So ambient light, we're going to stick that in there so we get a little more lighting on it. And again, I would take more time if this was production ready. But one thing to know is drop shadows or shadow catchers, you're not going to be able to do within Fusion itself. It just doesn't work right. So if you want shadows on the ground here, I mean, we could grab, say a shape node, input a plane, and on our plane, let's change the size. Let's actually make this 30, and then we're going to, wrong way. Going to translate that down to -90. So there you go. You can see we've got a little shadow there. And with this shadow, we can fix our direction here. So we can change our shadow to be kind of like that. There we go. But everything works great. So you can see we've got our little shadow of our sphere sitting in our scene. But unfortunately, this is going to be stuck there as well, because the shadow catchers within Fusion alone don't work quite right. Because even if I go to my shape, go to my controls, visibility, if I say unseen by camera, so is my shadow. So my shadow is not going to be seen. Even if I go to my lighting, I want it to be a shadow receiver. I can even uncheck these, but once I uncheck affected by lights or not visible or unseen by camera, it goes away. And there are ways to do this, but it takes a lot more nodes to do different projections and stuff. So we're still getting the image of this on here with the shadow, but it's a lot quicker just to create this in a different 3D program and create your shadows and export your shadows out as individual shadow catcher layers, because all other 3D programs, you can export only the shadows and not the actual shape. So just know within Fusion, you're going to have issues with that. Or if you don't need a shadow, you're good to go. So there you go. That is the camera tracker and doing something simple within Fusion to add something to your track. In the next episode, we're going to be covering getting a track, exporting it to, and we're probably going to use Blender. So if you don't have Blender, download that, get used to it. I'm just going to use Blender because it's free for everybody. We'll bring it into Blender. We'll create something on 3D, bring it back into Fusion, and comp it back into the scene. So I will see you in the next episode.